I tell people it's like San Francisco during the Wild West. It has some form of legitimacy to it, but it's still crazy and wild.
Today, we're excited to welcome Michael Hill, a true leader and innovator in the world of drones and public safety.
If you could get a drone to somebody within minutes, there was a 75% chance, 80% chance that you're going to save their lives.
Looking ahead, how do you see the role of drones evolving in the next 5 to 10 years?
We're going to see swarming drones. We also have to know there's a dark side to this technology that we also have to manage.
Welcome to Dronecast, rethinking public safety one drone at a time, a podcast by DroneSense. We explore real-world applications of drones and emergency response, offering a close examination of evolving trends in drone technology and its impact on public safety.
Welcome to Dronecast, everyone. Today, we're excited to welcome Michael Hill, a true leader and innovator in the world of drones and public safety. With a rich background that spans over 2 decades in technology, Michael's journey took an inspirational turn when he began exploring drones and their life-saving potential in emergency response. From his early experiences with drone flight taught by his daughter, to his role as director of search and rescue in the unmanned drone space, Michael has become a leading advocate for the use of drones in public safety. Michael's deep commitment to supporting first responders, especially EMTs and search and rescue teams, has driven his focus on advancing drone technology to improve efficiency, accuracy, and safety in high-pressure environments. As a certified UAV pilot in 3 countries, Michael's expertise spans from search and rescue missions to pioneering initiatives with organizations like Drone Responders, where he works to ensure that drones are deployed efficiently to save lives. Join us as we discuss Michael's vision for the future of drones in public safety, his personal journey, and the impact drones have on emergency response today. Welcome to Dronecast, Michael. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. Happy New Year to everybody.
Well, it's great to have you on here. We've both crossed paths a couple times in this industry, and we've seen each other's faces. It's good to be on here together.
Yeah, share with you.
Excellent. Well, good stuff. Well, hey, let me go ahead and get started with some opening questions here. I know you've had a very interesting journey into the world of drones, starting with your daughter teaching you how to fly them. Can you share a little bit more about that personal experience that sparked your interest in technology and where it led you here today?
Yeah, it's kind of come full circle. So yeah, my middle daughter, Aubrey, I have 5 daughters. My middle daughter, Aubrey, had a little toy Batman drone. She was playing with it. I got fascinated by it, but frustrated because I kept crashing into the wall with it. But it was at a time that I had retired from Microsoft, right? Didn't really know what I was going to do next. So I started playing with drones. And the one at that particular time that was a good drone was the solo drone where you had your GoPro camera. So I bought me one of those and I started flying in the park every day, all day, every minute I could fly, right? But at the same time, I thought, oh, this is pretty fascinating. I'm going to start a little company and see where it goes. So I did, and I landed a client, big client, right immediately. It was a retirement community that had 96 properties in Texas and Louisiana. And they wanted videos done. They wanted drone shots outside. They wanted camera held inside footage, right? And fished together. And it's still on their social media platforms now, right? So I literally spent the first year building a company, learning how to fly drones. And it was just crazy. And my world took off from there, right? Just expanded crazy from there. Now, my middle daughter, Aubrey, she actually is an aerospace engineer at Milwaukee School of Engineering, right? That's her passion.
Goodness. I love hearing these stories of how the aha moment and the entry into drone and, oh, that's great. That's awesome.
Yeah. And to add to that, so she came home this summer for summer vacation and she's like, I don't want to work at the little candy shop that she worked at high school. She wanted to use her drones, right? So she went out and she did a dozen videos or something over the summer and made money to go back to school on, right? With a drone.
That's great. Little Batman drone. I love that. Mine was a DJI Spark, was the first one I ever flew. And I was like, whoa, this is amazing. I love this. And this is it's a toy, but goodness, I'm using it for a purpose, for a tool.
I still have my Spark. I'll take it to the beach and fly it, but all around the beach and that, right?
That's funny you say that. Still have mine too. And it's still such a fun little tiny thing to fly. It lasts maybe 8 minutes, but it's still a great time.
Yeah, the batteries don't last very long, but yeah, it's a fun little drone.
You had mentioned your rich background in technology and especially Microsoft and with the Azure cloud development team. How did your expertise in tech naturally transition to your current work now with drones and public safety?
Not as well as it should have, because my friends give me a hard time and say, "Why did you start a software company?" I mean, I should have. I came from the software world. And really, if you look at autonomy, the software is where it's driving everything, right? It's a tool. So I consider myself a technocrat. I love technology. I love to play with it. I want to know how it works. I want to know what it can do. And I just want to know everything I can about it, right? So that became an important piece for me. And then also for me, I'm a hustler, right? So as I was doing those facilities, they're coming to an end. I started morphing into wind turbines and cell tower inspections. And I volunteered to be the policy and legislative chairman for the North Texas Council of Governments UAS task force. That's where I met Coit and I met Brandon and a bunch of others, and we started up the PSER team, or grew the PSER team, right? Which was a public safety unmanned response team that came out of Hurricane Harvey. All of the stuff came out of Hurricane Harvey and how to use drones and what's the best use for them in those situations. So I was fortunate enough as the legislative and policy chairman that I got next to our legislators, started talking to them about drones, got admitted onto a couple of Texas's committees where we defined the laws around drones, right? So that's where I got introduced to DroneSense and the team at DroneSense and got to know them.
Well, you just mentioned some of my favorite all-stars there, Coit and Brandon. Love those guys. I've been on here too. Drones have come a long way in the last decade. But when you first started working with them, what aspects of drone technology really intrigued you the most?
Well, with the Solos, they are a open source platform. So the software at that time was very limited. I still actually have my Solos. I haven't used them for a while.
Good. You're like me. I've collected and I keep all of my originals, and I might even find some old vintage ones too and do a collage of them all. But
I got an old RC helicopter and all kinds of stuff, right? But yeah, they gain a piece of you when you use them and fly them. And it's just, I don't want to separate with them. My wife laughs because I have a whole closet full of drones, but they're paid for. They're toys.
yeah, they're great. I name all of mine.
It's funny you say that because I name all of mine Top Gun characters.
That's brilliant. I like that.
Every one of my drones has had some call sign from Top Gun.
Now I want to steal that, but I won't. No, but that's very good. I love it.
Yeah, it's great. So I love the technology, right? I think that's what excites me the most about where we're at now, right? That we're really on the cuffs of what AI can bring to drone technology. And I've been in so many different industries. Conversation can go in so many different directions, but for law enforcement and first responders alone, that's a massive game changer. It does sadden me that our legislation isn't more supportive of our first responders in the tools they need, but that's a game changer for them. And why not help enhance the technology that's going to protect us even more, I say, right?
Well, let's dive into some bigger topics we could expand on, if you would. So I know you've been involved with countless amounts of search and rescue or SAR missions using different kinds of drone and drone technology. Could you share a particular example when drones played a critical role in saving lives?
Yeah, so probably one of the most exciting things I ever got to do was work with a company out in Norway that was delivering defibrillators with drones.
Oh man, I'm very envious of you. I know exactly what you're talking about. That is one of the coolest pieces of drone technology. I love this.
I thought so as well, too. And early on, they approached me and said, "Hey, we need some help. We want to understand the technology. We want to push this even further." And it was interesting in their research, like they had come to realize that if you could get a drone to somebody within minutes, there was like a 75% chance, 80% chance that you're going to save their lives, right? So the technology was pretty interesting. It had a two-way comms on it as well. So you took the defibrillator off and there was a dispatcher on the other end that would walk you through the procedure. So for me, I've seen so much in the drone technology or around this, but that to me was probably the coolest piece that I've ever seen a drone being used for. And I could see that, right? So I'm licensed in the United States, Canada, and the UK. And as whenever I go over to the UK, they have those phone booths in the middle of everywhere, no matter where you travel in the country. And they thought, wow, those are really great locations to have one stationed at. The technology hasn't taken off like I thought it would, right? Because it's amazing, right? I would say that was probably the early ons of what would DFR would come to be. Amazing tech, though.
I would say so. With your experience that you're mentioning here, what are some of the most significant advantages of using drones in emergency situations, especially in those hard to reach areas that we're talking about, and maybe during a large scale disaster?
Yeah, I would say definitely damage assessment, crowd control. Your communications change greatly as well, too. There's so many pieces. One of the coolest things that I thought the North Texas PSERT team did was we had a crane in downtown Dallas that fell over. I believe it was a windstorm, and it fell into an apartment complex and literally damaged several apartments. And so the North Texas PSERT team took drones in, flying in and around that to see if it was safe enough to send searchers and responders in, right? So it was things like that that really just started to click with me about the technology. And then we did a bunch during COVID for FEMA, with the whole FEMA area where everybody was going for shots and that. We did a lot of Overwatch stuff for the state and FEMA. So there're just so many different directions it can go. And it's not just law enforcement, it's fire as well, too. The things that they can spot for hot spots and just all kinds of different stuff.
Wow. With what you're saying here, how does drone technology compare to in like situations compared to using traditional response methods in terms of maybe speed and accuracy?
Yeah, I would say definitely the speed is there. That was one of the things I really like about the concept of DFR is you call in, you have a dispatcher, they can launch a drone from the facility and have eyes on the situation immediately. So they know ambulance, fire, or law enforcement, whatever they need. I think that speed really has to help in that, I want to say, recovery time to get them on site to be able to, handle the situation. The problem being, and I'm going to get on my soapbox here, is what our legislators are doing around DJI drones. I think that's really a disservice to our law enforcement agencies. I respect the fact of concerns about the Chinese government, but we don't discuss cell phones. And the DJI drones are best drones off the shelf, and most agencies don't have money, right? So they go for what they can get. And I just think it's terrible of those constraints that are being put around our first responders in drone technology.
It's a very interesting place, and it's unsettling because I think the biggest thing I fight for too is someone who, obviously an advocate with DJI drones. They're just the best, and they're so many years ahead of everything and their cost and so on. I understand that there's a risk there, and there's security risk and so on, and that's not for me to dive in or decide, but it's really fighting for our public safety officers to have the choice to make on all of this is really what I want to see. And also, yes, American manufacturing. And there's some amazing stuff coming out of that. It's just, again, I just want to fight to have the choice in our law enforcement or really public safety and be able to make that choice moving forward. And, not a shameless plug for DroneSense, but at the same time, that's why we advocate for all hardware to come work into our software.
Why not give them a toolbox of tools that they best decide what works for them? I just think it's a little backwards in our country around this aspect in enabling our first responders with the technology that works for them. There's parameters you can put around about data collection and data storage and all of that, right?
We're working hard on that right now, all of us here, especially at DroneSense for this.
I think what the problem is we need to educate our legislators and the public more about the technology, right? I think New Jersey was a good sign to show us how, as an industry, we're lacking in supporting our first responders in the technology or counter technology.
True. I'm sure you were like me, the amount of phone calls during the day from everyone from officials to public safety officers to friends in that area that were like, what's going on? And it's more education for the whole thing.
Yeah, I did a big segment for Nation News. They had called me about it as well, too. And it's like, if there was a threat, DOD, they would have scrambled. There would have been some action taken. But why they weren't transparent about it, and to our law enforcement of all people, just shows you how our legislation is not educated enough to support law enforcement, I feel.
Let's dive into some more even technical stuff when it comes into some things here. So I know you've been a big voice advocating for supporting EMTs and other first responders. How do you see drones transforming the work of EMTs, especially in rural or inaccessible areas?
Well, I think that's the big piece, right? Is those inaccessible areas. I go back to the defibrillator story, right? You have eyes on, you're there, right? You're en route, but at the same time, potentially the technology is helping, right? Whether it's a defibrillator or a life preserver or something, right? To cut down. Early in our conversation, we were talking about drone fishing, and that's when it really came in to me about why can't we just have a life preserver autonomously fly off a Coast Guard ship and save somebody. I mean, there are just so many things around the technology that I think that we haven't even scratched the surface with it yet.
100% agree. And it's interesting because it's not the technology keeps advancing by the either the flight time, the specs of the camera, the amount of weight it can hold, how fast it can go, all these things. But then we still get down to like what is the most, to both of us, some of the most interesting stuff is not just being a drone there, but also providing something. And that's where this next step is: defibrillator, life preserver, bottle of water, whatever that is, and where that's going to go. It's interesting.
I've seen some scenarios in search and rescue that having a speaker on that drone to talk to the victim, to drop an emergency blanket to them, a bottle of water, but to be able to hover there while ground teams are making their way to that person, right? I've seen that technology of just being able to communicate with that person to let them know that help is on the way. I've seen even something as small as that be impactful.
Now, were there any kind of scenarios that you've either been a part of or you've witnessed that have successfully assisted in medical emergencies like the defibrillator? Is there something else maybe you could expand on?
Yeah, not so much. I didn't really have much experience in that, but in my career, I joined the Civil Air Patrol. They did not have a Texas unmanned team. So I signed on. It's a total volunteer organization, 70,000 volunteers now. But I tried to lay the groundwork for a drone team in the Texas wing of the Civil Air Patrol. It was a little bit difficult. FEMA, other governmental regulations, when you get on site, they're not very hip on the new technology, right? They're old school guys, and I give it to them. They've been doing it a long time, but I had a difficult time developing a program in Texas, and we had members that everybody wanted to become a search and rescue drone pilot. So you had to get a number of FEMA certifications. You had to learn how to fly. CAP has a series of regulations, very military structured. So we tried to build a program out in Texas. For me, it was middle of the road in success, right? But what really came down to holding back the success was the lack of an MOU between FEMA and the Texas wing, right? So we would get called up to hurricane responses and then you'd stand down. So that was a little bit disappointing in my career. But at the same time, I'm proud to say that I helped certify over 350 remote pilots in Texas, right? So through the Civil Air Patrol. So they're trying to keep the program going. Other states have now adopted it. Arizona has probably become the biggest for search and rescue with the Civil Air Patrol and drones. There's just so many different things out there about using drones for search and rescue. You've got a wide area that you can map. You've got eyes on quickly in an area. Like I just talked about, you have technology where you can fly out, find that person with a thermal camera, drop a bottle of water or whatever, but to stay eyes on with them, right? There's just so many things that we haven't even scratched the surface on the technology with it yet.
Now, say Beyond survey and mapping, how do you envision drones supporting EMTs in the future? And whether it's through medical deliveries, as we're talking about, or is it patient monitoring? Is there any other capabilities we're talking about? And then what advancements in technology are you the most excited about that might come to be?
The thing that I'm most excited about is definitely AI. The rest of it's just hardware. It's a tool in a box. But that AI is what's it going to allow it to do, Swarming capabilities. There are so much. So this last summer, to stay in the drone industry, I'm getting ready to celebrate my 10th year now. And to stay in it, you got to jump down every rabbit hole and learn everything, try everything. So this summer, I went and got my Texas private security license because I started visiting with the security firms and none of them are using drone technology. And the few that are trying, they're not successful at it as well, too. So this summer, I worked with several large private security companies about implementing drone technology. I see that as a really low-hanging fruit to support EMTs and law enforcement, right? I think that as the technology is changing here, like we talked about, defibrillators, those medical emergency things that we need to get to someone quickly, I think we're going to see more advances in that. I was a little disappointed that we didn't see more medical delivery catch off with drone technology, right? Intercampus, I know that they tried, there were some companies that have tried to do it, but I was really surprised that that hasn't taken off more.
I mean, it was one of the first aha moments to me when I was sitting in Dolores Park, San Francisco, and this is definitely not appropriate or even legal, but it was back in the day where drones were still just a toy and an RC thing, and there was a convenience shop that delivered me Tylenol at Dolores Park, San Francisco. Just a crazy thing, and it was oh, this is awesome. This is the future. We're not there yet.
I never thought about that. That's pretty good. So in Dallas, Fort Worth, we got Walmart's covering 75% of the Metroplex now with drone delivery here, right? So, and Wing and others, right? But I never thought about that. Think of all the condos and that you could use a small drone for a personal item, like an aspirin or, whatever it may be, right?
And then start using the AI technology built into these to be able to understand the correct flight pattern between buildings and so on. And then maybe it's return home feature that's correct by monitoring weather that's coming in and maybe what patterns. But there's so much that could be done here with AI right now. And it's really interesting. What are your thoughts on AI and maybe search and rescue missions?
I think that's going to be a game changer too, because right now, so what we teach in the Civil Air Patrol is how to fly patterns when you're doing those searches, right? So, and there's so much potential for human error in that, right? Where AI is going to be able to center on a target quicker than we will in searching a grid, right? I see those type of advancements, and you could send them out in a swarm fashion, right? To cover a large area instead of one aircraft flying a pattern. I wanted to go back about medical delivery stuff and tell you about a project I was fortunate enough to work on in Canada. So I worked for the world's largest integrator. I was the regional director of business development for the Americas for them. And I came across a hospital in Canada that I don't remember how many months a year, X amount of months of the year, they're shut down because they're snowed in, right? You can't get supplies to them. So we started working with them and the indigenous nation up there for drone deliveries to resupply that hospital. The problem we found was at that point, we didn't have a large enough drone to make it worthwhile to haul in 20 pounds of material. But it was one of those times in my career when I really saw where the technology could make a difference, but we really didn't have the other pieces yet, as in hardware. But I know they're still trying to work on it. They've had some other testings that they've done, but it was a perfect scenario for this medical resupply type technology that I hope that will happen sometime. I think that first responders are our lowest hanging fruit in the technology that we should be supporting because in turn, we get back that benefit. So I really think that we need to be investing more monies and more research and more time in advancing not only the hardware, but AI and the software that can do those things that might be a minimal task for an EMT that can be done by a dispatcher via a small drone, whatever it may be. I know that there's some sensors out there on drones that some people in the cattle industry are using to monitor their cattle. So why not humans? Temperature readings, electrical impulse readings off of you, whatever it may be. I see that as the way of the future for the technology, right? Smaller drones, more enhanced sensors.
There's so many layers there, right? And it's really interesting because the more I've been speaking to, especially even just as we're wrapping up this year, but this year, how much, there was a lot of pushback from the public for drone use over crowds or with a lot of people or so on. But now it's starting to be like, actually, now we actually have some trust because of a lot of these very transparent agencies and so on and people using it. And actually, could you do this? Could you do a crowd count of how many people are here? There's so much that could happen there. And then with our public safety and responders and such, having a drone there instead of putting them in harm's way and be the safety part of it, or staffing shortages, there's so much there. And I see exactly what you're saying.
During FEMA, I was fortunate to fly with the PCERT team here they went to Texas Motor Speedway, the NASCAR track, and that was the big FEMA location, right? So we were flying Overwatch and we were teaming off when a battery would go low, we'd put another one in place. But we were doing everything from like crowd monitoring to head count, right? They wanted to know how many vehicles per hour were coming into the facility. At that point, it was the largest facility in the United States during COVID. But it was interesting how they were embracing the technology. And I'm telling you, it came from transparency. All of it comes from transparency that people go, oh, I see what the technology can do now. Or, oh, hey, let's give that a try for the technology, right? When they're not transparent about it, it puts that doubt. Will it really? Can it really? Are we safe? I think we saw a good portion of that in New Jersey here, right? That whole community just had no idea, right? And I think that we need to spend more time supporting our first responders and those that are flying drones to be active in our community. Those of us that are in industry, I feel like it's our responsibility to bring forward and educate the community about drone technology, right? I think overall, that will help our first responders as they embrace that technology because public acceptance is a big piece.
Truth. And you're hitting on three things I've continued to notice with doing this podcast, and that is community, transparency, and education. Those three pillars right there for sure.
Yeah, I believe in education. So as I was going through this, I went out and became a NIST proctor, become a SAR proctor. I hold over 100 FEMA certifications. I believe that knowledge is power, right? And anytime you can make yourself better by learning something or doing something, I think you have to. It's a drive inside of me.
Now, you've been involved in pioneering the integration of drones in emergency medical response. Now, looking ahead, how do you see drones being integrated into broader emergency services such as urban air mobility networks or disaster response systems?
Yeah, I think urban air mobility is going to play a big, big piece for us. And we're not talking about the small DJI Sparks bringing an aspirin to you. We're talking about
single aspirin,
right? I think we'll see things like when I worked for that integrator, we were working on some robotic technology for fires, how to detect them, how to manage them, both aerial and ground-based. So I think those are the things we're going to see is an aircraft that can fly into Puerto Rico with, a plane load of water, right? Or supplies or whatever it may be and fly in and out autonomously. I think with the changes of technology with eVTOLs, I think that's a game changer, especially for rural areas that doesn't have a runway to get supplies in or a disaster area, whether that you're at, to be able to drop in those supplies. I think as we see those larger aircraft and the advancements of the software technology, I think that's where we're really going to see a game changer for SAR missions, for disaster response missions, quicker times, more efficient, all of that.
Now, Michael, with your experience at the Unmanned Safety Institute, you've seen firsthand the importance of safety and certification. What role does standardization, training, and certification play in ensuring drones are safely used during high stake rescue missions, as you're mentioning?
I believe knowledge is power. The more you know, the more you're aware, the safer of a pilot you can be. In my career, I've never promoted a product, but Unmanned Safety Institute, I got their certifications early on and I found a value in it. It helped me with my career. It helped me become a better pilot because I didn't come from a piloting world, right? I came from a technology world. So I needed to learn, how do you operate in the national airspace effectively and safely? What are the no-fly zones? All of those things. At the same time, how does the aircraft work? How does it fly? All of those things. So I found Unmanned Safety Institute's certification were a game changer in my career, right? And I've seen Unmanned Safety Institute do some really amazing things in remorphing their certifications, right, to make them relevant to the industry. So I believe no matter what it is, if knowledge is power and the more you can learn, the more you're advancing the industry, the more you're becoming a safer pilot. So I think those are critical. And I think everybody should run out and get as many of them as you can. And it helps you become a better pilot. It has for me. I've flown some large aircraft too, right? So it's not just small DJI stuff, right? I've flown some large aircraft offshore, across borders. And I'm telling you, if I could promote one thing for anybody is knowledge. Get out, learn how to do it, get that certification, thermographer certification, search and rescue, whatever it may be. Go out and accumulate as many of them as you can. It'll just make you an all-around better person.
It's amazing how many filters you start to gain and how much you can look through and see so much more. I mean, not probably our audience necessarily, but I still remember the moment that I learned everything about it, or like an aeronautical map, and be able to like read it. And I was like, oh my goodness, I understand this. And I was like, I thought this was just scribbles and circles and I had no clue. And now I'm like, oh yeah, makes perfect sense.
It's kind of funny because for me, I had that aha moment with my first sectional because my dad was an over-the-road trucker and he would throw an atlas at me and say, okay, we've got to get to Benbrook, New York. How do we get there? So I never, as you grow older and technology starts to come into your life, we become more reliant on that technology. So the first time I had to understand a sectional, it was a game changer for me. It brought me back to that childhood of looking at maps. So I love them. And they're the most difficult piece for anybody to understand, right? But for me, it's just, they're so easy. I love reading them.
As soon as you see that upside down wedding cake, you're like, oh, got it. And then it starts to fun to look at other cities and stuff like that. And you're like, oh my goodness, this is a mess. Like this is, where can we even fly? Such a interesting scenario there.
It really is, yeah. So I've got a few that I've collected and saved over the years, right? Like I'm from Chicago. So whenever I can find a sectional, I find that just draws my attention immediately to, hey, I want to go and find this, or hey, I've flown into that airport. I want to see what's around that. What's that airspace?
Now, you have mentioned one of the challenges that you see is a lack of funding and training for many public safety agencies. What are some strategies you've seen work in overcoming these barriers?
Me personally, the thing that I've seen make changes is educating the public, educating our legislators, educating city managers on why you need to cut the check to support that UAS team and your police force. I think a lot of people look at the technology of, oh, those are toys. How are our law enforcement going to fly toys? But when you spend the time and you educate them on the good the technology is doing around the world, right? It's not just in our own backyard. I think that helps a lot because the agencies are so bootstrapped as it is for monies. They've got to find ways, drones are donated to their program or whatever it may be. I think that that's critical that we educate our people because at the end of the day, they're serving us, right? They're serving our families. And we want to make sure they have every possible tool to keep them safe and to effectively take care of us. So I think that transparency is massive.
How could smaller departments with limited resources still benefit from drone technology?
Yeah, that's the bigger piece, right? Because they have even less money to spend than a municipality. So I don't remember the name of the organization, but there is an organization out there that takes in used drones and gives them to agencies. I don't remember who they are, but they're out there. I want to say Drones to Vets, but I don't think that's right. There's another one out there. Do some research, or I can send you a link and let you know. But I think that that's critical, that we support these guys. One of the things that interests me as I got to know law enforcement agencies is, the tech rolls so fast. You got it, depreciates immediately. And you want to get the new ones, but your leadership says, nope, we already got some. You got to get rid of those first.
I was just talking to someone yesterday about this and how you're budgeting for July of next year, but yet the technology in July, it's going to be completely different. And the stuff you're looking at is already obsolete. It's just interesting.
And your bosses go, you got a tool. Why do you need a new one? And so the problem I found is, you've got a tool, you've got one. How do you get rid of that tool? Because you can't sell it to the general public because they end up sitting on the shelf. So maybe there's a way out there to develop some kind of inner brotherhood of sharing drones with those agencies, donating to those agencies, agency to agency versus agency to public.
Or maybe the American industry start kicking up making batteries so we can start flying our old Inspire 1s.
I have mine.
I know. I have one too. I think we both have one, but can't get a battery.
It's amazing how the batteries for those are like gold. I have 8 batteries for my Inspire, and I'll charge them about every couple months just to keep them alive. But so we need some U.S. innovation with the things that are going on with DJI right now and what's going on with our legislation. I'm hopeful that maybe our legislators will realize we have to support our first responders. And to do that, we have to pump up U.S. innovations. We've got to be able to have companies out there that can compete and build these type of drones at a price point that agencies can buy them off the shelf now. If you're going to take that away, we've got to have something to replace it. So I'm hopeful that all of this movement around DJI will have our legislators will spark some innovation in the US. So maybe we'll have a replacement. I think that this ban with DJI is going to be a killer for agencies. I think we looked at what happened in Florida and the limits and constraints that there are even further around our public safety people down there, right? About the technology to keep us safer. I don't get it.
All this conversation is even fueling this really interesting story that we're all talking about, and what the whole thing that's happened in drones since 2020 to now, to like where it's going to go. And it's going to be a good story. Maybe this is a quote in a documentary here sometime soon, but who knows? Netflix, reach out to us. We're in. So, and maybe even more with this. So like in this industry, there's a lot of misinformation and maybe unqualified operators. How do you combat the spreading of misleading information about drones and public safety?
Speak about it. Speak truth. Speak facts, case studies, things I've been involved in, tangible things, not just straight opinions. I think that especially with social media, we see so much misinformation out there, right? I think you really have to dial it back to being transparent and factual about what the technology can do, both good and bad, right? I mean, I think we haven't even scratched the surface yet on counter UAS, right? Which we need to desperately. But I think that by getting out, talking to people and educating people about, oh yeah, those are drones. Like for me in my neighborhood, it's become the centerpiece for wing deliveries for Walmart here in my neighborhood and grocery deliveries. So I see a lot of people on our social media platforms going, oh, they're spying on me. And so every once in a while, I'll go on there and I'll say, no, they're looking at this, or go look at this police department, they're flying. But I think we see a lot of that misinformation out there that stirs fear up, which immediately takes away from, and maybe it is law enforcement flying it and they have a purpose that they're flying it for. But when we don't address it with the public and explain to them the technology, the uses, and who's using it, I think that's detrimental to the industry overall. And I feel as a supporter of this industry that I need to carry that torch, and every chance I get, go, oh no, let's talk about the technology. I'll tell you some cool stuff I've seen happening. So I think that's critical for all of us, that every chance we get, every opportunity we can, is to squash those, misinformation. Go, look, that may be true, but look at this and the good that they're doing. And if you don't believe me, go research it yourself. Hopefully you plant that seed that they'll then go, oh, they'll learn about drone technology. And then they'll go, oh no, I saw the law enforcement guys doing that, right?
I mean, you're hitting back on those three pillars there, right? It's transparency, education, the community. And it's up to us, Michael, and those listening right now on all parts of it.
Totally agree. There's so much to be done still, right? And I think we need to really protect our first responders and what they're doing, right? And just empower them with whatever technology we can.
Yeah. Well, Michael, I have some closing questions here to ask you, I'd say. So looking ahead, how do you see the role of drones evolving in the next 5 to 10 years?
Massively outside of the United States. Inside of the United States, questionable until the FAA decides its priority. But I think what we're going to see is swarming drones, the technology of that and how it's used. Now, I say good and bad, right? We also have to know there's a dark side of this technology that we also have to manage and control. But I think with the advancements of advanced air mobility, to be able to reach those rural areas with a defibrillator or medical supplies, or somebody that lives at a farm that's 10 miles from a sheriff's office or whatever it may be, I think that as the technology is becoming more accepted, I think we'll start seeing advances in that. We already know that they're capable of doing that and more, but it just really comes back down to those three pillars like you spoke about. But I think we'll see an impact in this easily within the next 5 years or less.
It's exciting times, tumultuous, exciting, all of the above, but we're gluttons for punishment.
I tell people it's like San Francisco during the Wild West, right? It has some form of legitimacy to it, but it's still crazy and wild.
Well said. I like that. I like that a lot. For those looking to make a meaningful impact in public safety drone space, particularly in small departments or regions with fewer resources, what advice would you offer on how to get started and drive the adoption of drone technology efficiently?
I would say if you have an interest in this technology, study the Part 107 and get the license. Even if you decide you don't want to fly, it's an amazing piece of technology that most of us look up at the sky and go, oh, that's an airplane. But you don't realize everything that comes into what does it take to fly in the national airspace. So I would say, first, foremost, understand that. Understand the technology. Look at, some of the great things that are going on with drones. Yes, we have bad actors, right? We have bad actors in every industry. But there's a lot of good that's being done with drone technology and so much more coming. And not just on the public safety side, but overall with the technology. I tell people we're living in the Jetsons age now. That technology, ground-based, aerial-based, it's all being developed. And now with the advancements of advanced air mobility, we're going to start seeing those vehicles flying in our airspace. So start to learn about what's going on with the technology, what people are doing. And then secondly, I would say, get to know your local first responders, right? See if they're using the technology, because most of them, they're not advertising, hey, we're flying drones, but they actually have some UAS program in it. So get to know them, find out how you can support your local community. And maybe it's a fundraiser or whatever it may be to help them with the advancements of using that technology, especially when you start to get into smaller communities where you're such a close-knit family, right? Everybody knows everybody. Find out what they're doing. Find out ways that you can help them with the technology, whether it's aerial or a body camera or ground-based or whatever it may be. Because at the end of the day, it keeps them safer and they keep us safer.
Excellent. Well said, Michael. Now, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out to you to find some more information, what's the best way for them to find you online?
Yeah, so I write a lot of blogs, manuscripts, white papers. So you can follow us. I write them, post them all up on Uncrewed Aerospace is my company. You can find me on all the social media platforms. To connect with me personally, the easiest, fastest way is find me on LinkedIn, Michael Hill, and I go by the tag name, The Drone Pro. You'll be able to find me there. I write a lot. I speak a lot about the industry. I try to hold up my little corner of the industry and let everybody know what's going on with it. So find me on LinkedIn or come to my company, Uncrewed Aerospace. You'll find us all over the web.
Excellent. Well, Michael, hey, thank you so much for spending some time with us today and being able to share all your insight in the industry and also just have some fun. We have great conversations. So thanks again. And really thank you for being here. But big shout out and thank you to those listening to Dronecast. We're real excited to give you some more information next time and some more exciting interviews coming soon. So see you next time. Thanks again, Michael. And thank you for everyone joining us. Take care.
Dronecast, Rethinking Public Safety One Drone at a Time, is brought to you by DroneSense. To find out more about DroneSense and how our comprehensive situational awareness platform can help you fly, share, and manage your drone program, please visit DroneSense.com. That's DroneSense.com. And then make sure to search for Dronecast in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or anywhere else that podcasts are found. Please don't forget to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at DroneSense, thanks for listening.